The way that I like labeling my presentations is things not to do and things that people don't do that get them in trouble, especially when it comes to owning an agribusiness, whether you are doing raw commodities or you're maybe on the fringes with agritourism, agroeducation, and value added products. So, one thing that I notice a lot of farmers not doing from my own experience as well as the clients that I serve is a lot of them do not have a mentor. It is so important to have a mentor, and I'll go over that in a little bit. But some common mistakes that people make is people do not seek wisdom. I'm going to repeat that again. People do not seek wisdom. That is extraordinarily problematic, not just in our society today, but also when it comes to farming. There is too much money at stake, too much debt to go into to not be seeking proper guidance and wisdom when it comes to farming, even if it's Dexter cattle. So that's one thing I notice a lot of people not doing. Another thing I noticed that a lot of people are not learning from the experiences and successes of others. And so that's another thing that's going to be really important when we go into mentorship is also being able to understand what success looks like by reaching out, being able to see people. And with mentorship, you can have direct mentorship. Let's say someone you can pick up, call on the phone, get a response back immediately. There is also mentorship where there are people who are online who are giving great business advice or marketing advice. And although you don't have direct contact with them, they're still mentoring you in a way that allows for you to get information and to advance your business. So both are valid. I do lean more towards the direct mentorship because people on YouTube or on the internet, if you have a particular question, they're not usually going to get back to you. And so it's really important to have someone you can have an intimate relationship, not romantic, but intimate, where they know you, you know them, where they're able to be vulnerable about the business mistakes that they've made. That will hopefully inspire you to be vulnerable about the business mistakes or insecurities that you're going through when it comes to raising Dexter cattle for profit. So we think about what it looks to find a mentor. We got to think about long-standing success. There are a lot of people out there who maybe will call themselves a guru or would say that they are really big. A lot of famous YouTubers out there. Some of them are raising Dexter cattle and other fancy breeds, niche breeds, fad breeds. But when you look at a lot of these YouTubers, I'm not talking about anyone in particular, so let's just make that clear, not calling anybody out. Most of them don't have a year experience farming, especially for production. Most of them are hobbyists. These are a lot of the homesteading community who tends to flood that online YouTube farm learning market. Most of them do not have years of experience. And if they do, they have very limited scale of experience because they're only dealing with one cow, two cows, three at max for most of these folks, versus people like me who we've raised hundreds of cattle within our farming career and journey. So there's a difference between learning from someone who's raised only three cows their whole life versus someone who raised 500. So understand that difference when it comes to long-term success. Having a good reputation is also really important. Again, a lot of people who are famous, also a lot of people who are infamous and to be divisive, like to just these people, they're on your Facebook groups. You'd probably abandon them from your Facebook groups. You know what I'm talking about. So it's really important to make sure that if you're learning from someone, see how they talk to people online. Go to your Facebook group and just see what are they commenting. Are they being encouraging in their comments? Or are they calling people idiots, stupid? I would do it this way, like boastful arrogance. If they're presenting themselves that way online, chances are they're going to do this exact same thing if you're having a one-on-one conversation or mentorship with that person. So again, they need to have a good reputation. Doesn't matter if they're a super pro at raising Dexter cattle or whatever. If they don't have a good reputation, they're not going to be someone that you want to be associated with. And then a positive mindset. Positive mindset's really important because a lot of people get stuck in working with people who are like the Grinch, very bitter. I've met successful farmers who they're making almost $1 million a year in revenue. and they're not really worried about where they're going to get their next meal. And they're, for the most part, financially secure on all aspects, but they're miserable. We ask them, oh, but how'd you get successful? Or what are some things that you like? Or, hey, can I get some tips from you? Oh, I wouldn't even recommend doing any of this and blah, 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 blah. They're just complaining. Those are not necessarily people that you want to have as a direct mentor. Now, you can always seek advice from people who are grumpy. Nothing wrong with that. But a mentorship is more than just seeking advice. It's having an actual relationship with somebody. So be mindful of that when you're thinking about mentorship and where to find a mentor. All right. So in our breakout session, some questions we're going to ask. Again, during the breakout sessions, feel free to answer just one of them. If you got time for answering multiple, that's great. We'll talk a little bit more about rules and regulations during the breakout sessions. But question number one, what has been your main challenge in finding a mentor? The last two sessions that we had, it was apparent that at least a quarter of our audience did not have mentorship, and about half of those people were actively looking for mentorship. So if there have been particular challenges, it's really important to talk about those things. We have board members who are here as well. So they want to actually hear what are your barriers and challenges, so how they can help meet those needs. Again, the board, ADCA, they want to meet your needs. So be able to be honest, open, and if there's anything that ADCA can do to be helpful in that, perfect, great. But what is the main challenge that you've had when finding a mentor when it comes to raising Dexter cattle? Number two, what specific knowledge gaps do you want a mentor to help you with? It can be in the production of Dexter cattle. It could be in breeding, milking, value-added products like turning a Dexter cow into steaks, ground beef, things like that. It can also be, hey, I'm interested in agritourism, or I'm interested in teaching butchery classes using Dexter cattle. Because again, you're not dealing with these big animals like Angus, right? You're not dealing with those animals. You're dealing with Dexters. Dexters are very good for small-scale butchery. So that might be something you're interested in. So again, like what are some knowledge gaps that you want a mentor to fill in the gaps? It can also be business and marketing as well. It could be anything that you're particularly interested in. Number three, can you recall a time when a mentor's guidance could have changed your revenue outcome? A time where, oh man, if I didn't do this, I would be making more money, or I would have to go further into debt. So if there's a time that you've experienced, definitely share that in the breakout session, because we'll be able to learn from each other. It's so important. Part of the reason why I have breakout sessions and I'm not just talking for a full hour is because I do believe the power in peer-to-peer exchange. You have your own experiences. I have my own experiences. They're all different in some way, shape, or form. So there is power in your experience, even if you've only been raising Dexters for a few months. Just as much power as there is in someone who's been raising it for a few decades. So with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to put us all in some breakout rooms. So hold on one second. And welcome to anyone who joined us not that long ago. Glad you are here. Hit the join button.
Essentially finding mentors that share your philosophy or some of the goals that you're trying to achieve, whether that's vaccinations or rotational grazing or all the different principles that people are doing out there. But some folks just, especially in some regions or areas, all the mentorships are more commercial oriented. That was a good takeaway for me.
Thanks for sharing, Ian. Take. All right, Ian, wrap that up pretty quickly. Is there anyone else who'd like to share what they've learned in a breakout room?
It's nice to know that other people are struggling with the same things that you are. Sometimes it feels like you're the only one doing this, and it's difficult.
Thanks for sharing, Marissa. I can relate. It's part of the reason why I like doing the breakout rooms is because y'all get to hear from one another. Y'all are in different parts of the country, and I think it's really nice when you get to hear, hey, you're struggling too? Oh, great. It can be actually really refreshing to know that you're not alone with the same problems. So yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, who else would like to share? Just go ahead and speak up. Don't be shy.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that one of the things that was mentioned was utilizing the member map to find people in your area. And I think that would be very helpful. I found a few people and have been in contact with, but that, and then also social media, Facebook, whatever, would be a good place to look. I I have met a couple of people that are raising in this Idaho Falls area. We live a little east of there in Ryrie, but there are people around here with Dexters, and so I don't think I'm going to have. I already am building a base, but I hadn't really thought of it as mentorship at the time. Anyway, but it is very helpful to have somebody to talk with, and just sometimes your question seems, I don't want to bother anybody with that, but and it's sometimes those turn into really long conversations. So anyway, so that's what I picked up from that.
Thanks for sharing, Kathy. Glad you're here. And on a slightly emotional note with that, one thing that I have learned growing into a mature adult was that it's okay to ask for help. I spent most of my life not believing that, was encouraged not to believe that as a child. And as an adult, I've been learning, like, oh, you know what? I'm worthy of receiving help. It's okay to ask for help. It doesn't mean I'm stupid. In fact, it means I'm smart because I don't have to keep repeating the same things that don't work in my life. So yeah, just an encouragement to y'all. It is okay to ask for help. There are no stupid questions, just really stupid answers. And again, you go on Facebook, you see a lot of those. Anyways, I'm going to get off my soapbox. So let's go on to the next portion of our little webinar today. This is one of my favorites. Hold on a second. See if this works. Aha, perfect. Good. All right. Next up, we have, let's see. Yeah, there we go. Develop a plan. Again, I like to look at this as things that people don't do. So developing a plan has been one of them. Most farmers that I've worked with and farmers who I know personally, they got on the farm because they just being outside, they like cooking food, they like being health conscious. So they got into farming from that standpoint rather than the business standpoint. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that. It's just the issue becomes when people try to make a business out of their hobby, the hobby was never necessarily meant to be a business to begin with. So we have to really restructure not just how we farm, but also the way that we're looking at what we can provide and what we already have. So things that cause farmers to fail is they do not create a business, marketing, and emergency strategy. Business and marketing are not the same thing. So business is more about how are things going to get produced, how much do things cost in terms of cost of production, labor production, things like that, transportation, logistics, all that type of stuff. Marketing is more of expenses when it comes to websites, how to run ads on social media, how to signs for a farmer's market, how to do affiliate marketing if you have people who are going to be under you and you're going to use their brand to help promote your brand. So a lot of different ways where you can look at that. And then emergency strategy. This is really relevant, especially today. For those of you who don't know, I live in North Carolina. And if you watch the news, you probably might know that the western part of my state has been completely decimated from flooding and mudslides. It has been very catastrophic. And I know farmers who have been greatly impacted who live in that area. Being able to have an emergency plan when there's a tornado, how if you it's you and somebody else, maybe your farm's a little bit bigger and you got some employees who are not your family members, what's step one? What do we do? Let's say, hey, there's going to be a hurricane coming, but we know in advance, right? Hurricanes will just pop out of nowhere. So, like, how do we prepare for that? Where do we need to relocate livestock? If you live in California or actually the West Coast, I've had friends that get wildfires, and that's regular, right? So they have to figure out, okay, if I have a wildfire, where can I place my cattle? Who do I need to know that I can put my cattle on their land while the wildfire gets figured out and situated and then dies down? So having an emergency plan is going to be really important because guess what? If you're going into debt doing this and you lose all your livestock and all your infrastructure and et cetera, bank don't really care. So it's just really important to make sure that you're looking at all strategies so that way you can protect your investment. Again, this is an investment. The Dexter cow that you bought It's not just a cow, it's an investment. Look at it that way. People who do not look at their resources as investments, they end up not really caring about it. And then when it's gone, it really hurts. So things that you can do in terms of developing a plan is know every detail of how you'll generate an income. This is very important. A lot of people just raise animals and expect to make a profit off of it. That's not how it works. Next week, we're going to talk about business and markets. Next week. Yeah, next week or in the week after that, we're going to talk about business and marketing. That'll be the whole session will be just on that. So be prepared for that. Other things that are going to be really helpful for you is adhering to all legal and financial responsibilities. Part of being a business owner is not just creating a business, it's understanding your legal limitations, your legal liabilities, and also your legal rights. So it's really important when you think about, okay, if I want to start a business, are you even allowed to do this type of business? Some of you have dairy cows, right? Dexter's produce dairy. And you think, oh, okay, I'll just sell milk to some friends or to my church community or to my coworkers. Nothing won't happen from that. Okay, how are you labeling the milk? Are you labeling it for human consumption? Okay, if you live in a state where raw milk is not, and assuming most people don't pasteurize Dexter cow milk, most people don't do that. Nothing wrong with that. I love raw milk. But if you're selling raw milk and you live in a state where you're not allowed to sell that, you could be facing not just fines, but also jail time, right? So understand your legal limits. Sometimes your state is forgiving if it's a first offense. Sometimes they don't care. They will put you in jail. So just be mindful about what your legal limitations and rights are when it comes to selling a particular product. For some of you, you want to get into agro-tourism, and let's say you want to have a glamping site where people can see your dexters and your other livestock. In some areas, you're not allowed to do that. Or if you do some type of Airbnb or glamping, there's certain limitations to that. So again, figuring out what your legal options are and your liabilities are going to be very important. And that's not to scare anybody. I want to make that very clear. Sometimes this is where people fall off the map when it comes to being successful is they don't want to go through the planning process. My goal, my encouragement is to take your time to actually develop a proper business plan. If you take your time in doing that, which ain't not going to necessarily finish in one day. It might take you a week, might take you a month, might take you 3 months if you really want to be diligent about it. But the more time and energy that you put into creating a strong business model, doing your research, like we talked about last week, the less likely you are in failing. Again, I'm not in the business of just teaching people how to farm and do business only for them to fail. I want you to actually succeed. So heed my warning. All right, cool. So we're going to go to our breakout sessions. Let's see, make sure to go this way. So some questions that you'll have for your breakout session are this. What innovations can boost your production efficiency and reduce costs? It's really important to reduce costs. It's also important to produce more efficiency so that way you can actually make more money quicker. In livestock, for some of you, maybe you're raising Dexter and you're using feed, right? That could be a real big cost. For some of you, maybe you're not using feed per se, like grain feed, but you don't have enough pasture or you don't live in a climate that's going to allow you to have pasture year round. So now you have to buy hay. Also an issue, right? So feed tends to be the most expensive thing about being a livestock farmer. So understand, like, how can I reduce my costs? But more importantly, how can I actually be efficient with my productivity? One thing that separates rich people from poor people, and if you, again, if you feel fit in one category or the other, do not take offense. I'm just trying to help you. Poor people only think about how can I save money? That's all they're thinking about. How can I save money? How can I be cheap? How can I just save cheap? Rich people, wealthy people do not think that way. So I want you to change your mentality. If you're in the mindset of, oh, I gotta get the cheapest gallon at the pump, and I'm gonna go 2 miles away to a gas station that's 5 cents cheaper. Okay, if you want to waste that time, by all means, cool. But that kind of mindset is going to hurt you in the long run. Wealthy people think about how can I produce more income that my costs become irrelevant? I want you to have that mindset instead. How can you produce more income on your farm with Dexter's and maybe with some other livestock or amenities or services added into your farm or homestead, how can I increase my revenue so much that it doesn't matter if I'm, it doesn't matter if the gas is 10 cents higher than what I would normally buy. It doesn't hurt me, right? So think about it from that perspective. Think more about how you can produce more income rather than how you can save more money, and you will be successful. Question number 2, how can you better connect your marketing strategy with your ideal customer? Again, who's your ideal customer, right? What products are you wanting to create or that you currently are creating and what ideal customer fits into those products? Is it the gym folks? Is it the beauty care folks? Because again, Dexter cow's milk, you can turn that into lotions, skincare products, salves, bombs. So that's a completely different market. Gym people might not be interested in that, but women and people who love health, skincare, they do care about stuff like that. So again, think about how can you better connect your marketing strategy with your ideal customer. And number 3, what risk could impact your agribusiness? And are you actually prepared to even take those risks, right? So think about it from that standpoint as well. So I'm going to put these questions in the chat. Let's stop my. All right, time to share before we close out tonight. What are some things that you learned from your breakout room or things that have been successful for you relating to the topic that you want to share with the rest of the crowd tonight? And feel free to just, when you're ready, just speak. And I'll put a 2-minute timer.
I just heard a gentleman told us about farmtoconsumer.org. It's a legal defense fund. And that seems like something I'm definitely going to investigate, because having an ally or friend and someone to help inform you would assuage a lot of my fears about rules changing in the future.
Thanks for sharing. I think also make sure I got this right. I think it's called the Farm and Rancher Freedom Alliance. Make sure that's right. Yep, Farm and Ranch Freedom Alliance also gives legal counsel and stuff like that. So that's another one. In fact, I'll put that in the chat too, that we have the website. I know the founder personally, and she was a lawyer. Technically still is a lawyer. And Judith, her name's Judith, really good person. So I'll put the website in for that. Cool. All right. What else we got? What else did y'all learn?
I learned that getting ready for what was risks, you just do the best you can. And because sometimes we're just hit with things that like the weather shifts and it comes our direction when we weren't planning on it and things like that. So we just have things in place to do the best we can.
Amen. Amen. Preach it. Preach it. And one thing that I always recommend to folks is having an emergency fund, not just for yourself personally, but also for your farm. And in the event that if you lost all your livestock, would you be able to repurchase your herd or start over? For a lot of people, the answer to that question is no. And having an emergency fund really helps people, if they fall in that situation, to at the least not be as stressed out as they would, or quite frankly, completely give up. Usually when stuff like this happens, people just give up. They don't go back to farming. It was already hard. This just wiped out their bank account. Now they got to figure out where they're going to live. So being able to have an emergency fund personally and for your farm is going to be really important. All right, what else we got? Don't be shy.
Someone in our group said that it's challenging to try and convince potential customers about the quality of Dexter beef in our area, and that's dominated by grain-fed Angus, Hereford, and Charolais. And I was like down to the last 53 seconds, so I didn't get to finish saying that. One other thing I was going to mention, and I think it's cool, is that there was a member, I think he's in, want to say it was Nebraska. Yeah, he was in Nebraska. And he literally went with a cooler and went to like bars, restaurants, and he would, not big chain ones, but family owned or something small, and would walk in there and ask to talk to the owner and would hand them a pound of Dexter hamburger and say, I want you to cook this up and then as a burger, like you make on your menu, and then you taste test it compared to the burger that you have that you buy wherever you buy it from, and tell me which one's better. And he did all grass fed, grass finished, whatever. And every time they were like, wow, this is the best hamburger I've ever had. And that's how he got them to try it. And then he got contracts and people, that's who he sold his beef to, was these restaurants, direct to the restaurant, and was very successful with it. Just an idea around the how can you better connect your marketing strategy with your ideal customer.
Sharon, Kimberly.
And that works at farmers markets too. We've given away samples and it's brought several customers back repeatedly. They just have to try it once.
Amen, Marissa. Amen. I remember when I did farmers markets, y'all know me, I love pigs. Clearly, I love pigs. And one of the best ways to get new customers is getting a flat top propane tank and literally cooking breakfast sausage in the morning for samples for people to try. They could smell it several clicks away. They're like, what's that smell? It smells really good. Start seeing the lines, start seeing people. Oh, you're getting that free samples. Pork fat, so flavorful. So this is really good. What is this? And it might be breakfast sausage, might be another value-added sausage, and they're sold by that point. They don't even care how much it costs. Now, costs are reasonable, but they don't even care. So being able to actually get your customers to try a product is really important. And I think that's the thing about selling raw meat. It's just so hard to sell it if people can't taste it or they can't smell it. So if your farmers market allows or wherever your avenue is, definitely invest in being able to do taste testing, test tasting at your farmers markets, and I promise you, your sales will increase. All righty, so we are out of time. I feel like we could have probably have talked about this for another 30 minutes. So yeah, next week is going to be a little different. Next week, we're going to go over a few things on the schedule. I have us talking about creating a budget. Yay, fun. Actually, it can be very boring creating a budget. But here's the thing, if you don't create a budget, it's so easy to go into debt, unnecessary debt. And I think being bored for an hour or two in your own time, my session's not going to be boring, but in your own time could save you literally tens of thousands of dollars in excessive debt. So definitely want to come for that. And we're also going to be talking about producing a quality product. So those will be our topics for next week. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to open it up to Kimberly or Lacey if you have any announcements you want to make before we shut it down.
I can't think of anything.
Cool, perfect. All right. I hope y'all have a blessed and wonderful day. And definitely prayers to, I think it was Ian out in South Carolina, still out of power. Has been raising Dexters for a few months. God bless you, brother. Be praying for you, man. But yeah, everyone else, have a good night. And I want to stop the recording.